Yes, hello, welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast. Today I will be reviewing round 5 of the National Rugby League season in 2026, and what a fantastic round it was. I'm going to go straight into the Thursday night game. Thursday, the 2nd of April, was the Manly Sea Eagles and the Dolphins. Manly winning that game 52 points to 18. For me personally, it was a fucking fantastic night. I wish I could remember it just quietly. Had a nice couple of glasses of red wine, and yeah, it was fantastic. I think it's really important too, as a rugby league fan and as a passionate rugby league fan, that when your team wins and has a good win and it's a memorable win for the club and the club's history, celebrate it. Celebrate it, whether it's just go out to dinner, have a glass of wine, or just do something that's going to help you relax and enjoy the moment. And that's what I certainly did on Thursday night. It was fantastic. I really enjoyed the way Manly played. Firstly, before I want to get onto the Dolphins first. My fear of the Dolphins leading into season 2026 was their defence. Last year, they were the best attacking side in the competition. They beat Melbourne by 30 odd points earlier in the season. And Melbourne ended up making the grand final. The likes of Isaiah Katoa, Hamiso Tabuai-Fidow, Herbie Farnworth, Jake Havarilo's been in phenomenal form over the last couple of years in the NRL at that centre position. Now they've got the likes of Selwyn Cobbo, Thomas Flegler's back, Jeremy Marshall-King. I understand they're missing him, but they had him for large portions of last year. Max Plath playing at dummy half probably doesn't. For me, he's one of my favourite players of the NRL, but they really are missing Jeremy Marshall-King and that creativity and attack out of dummy half, especially when they're in the red zone 10, 20 metres out from the try line. For the Dolphins, their defence and their discipline stinks. It's really bad. And look, I'm not going to pretend I'm, like some genius for working that out. It's pretty obvious that their defence is really poor and their discipline is even worse. But their attack was probably the worst thing of the night. And yes, their defense was really bad, but the amount of errors they made, the amount of silly errors, that they were so clunky, they couldn't connect, they couldn't play well together. Isaiah Katoa went missing, to be completely honest with you. Selwyn Cobbo, man, he's got so much potential. For me personally, he's had a pretty decent start to the year, but some of the errors he makes, it's just not up to NRL standard. When Madge Maguire dropped him last year and replaced Selwyn Cobbo with Josiah Karapani at the halfway point of the season, I actually couldn't believe that he had made that decision. Then I saw Karapani getting himself more involved in games than Selwyn Cobbo does. He makes less errors more than Selwyn Cobbo does. And there's just, for the Dolphins, it was one of those games that you probably can't just sort of put it in the rear vision mirror. They need to understand that there is a serious problem with their defence and discipline. And for the Dolphins, just like Manly after the Newcastle game a few weeks ago, they would have hated having the bye coming up in round 6. They would really, really be disappointed with the bye coming up. And I just think, then they've got Penrith, I'm pretty sure, in round 7. So they've got a lot of work to do. They have a lot of work to do. And, if you're a Dolphins fan, are you expecting to beat Penrith? Probably not. Are you expecting for a complete performance? Absolutely. If you're coming off the bye, by then they wouldn't have played for 2 weeks or over 2 weeks at that stage. They took on Manly. They lost to Manly. They allowed Manly to score 52 points, and they just weren't. Manly have been shocking to start the season. So there are huge concerns for the Dolphins in their defence. If they fix up their discipline in defence and attack, if they start respecting the football and their defence improves significantly, they are genuinely a top 4 side. But in my opinion, I didn't have them in the 8 because I still had massive concerns about how poor their defence was last year. I hope I'm wrong, and I could easily be wrong. I could still see the Dolphins actually making the 8 and proving many people wrong, including myself. But until they fix their defensive errors up and until they start respecting the football and playing the long game, rather than trying to score tries off every play and every set, they need to play the long game, a bit like Penrith and Melbourne and the Roosters. Oh, probably not the Roosters at the moment. Maybe the Roosters back in 2018, 2019. They played the long game back then, the Roosters. Premiership winning sides over the years play the long game. And they're patient in their defense and their attack, and they trust each other in their defense and attack. And I got the I got the idea, and I sort of looked at their defence closely, and there was a bit of pointing of fingers of, oh no, he was your guy, when Manly would go through, and there was a lot of sort of looking at each other, wondering and scratching heads of what just happened and why they didn't defend that tackle. Now, I think that they need to take some ownership. And there's no better way to do that than beating the Penrith Panthers if they can do it in the following round. But for me, really disappointing there from the Dolphins. For the Manly Sea Eagles, for me, Ben Trbojevic, that was his best game of his career. For me, I've had massive concerns over Ben with his defence. I think he's a good player, Ben Trbojevic, Burbo. I think he's a good player. But for me, his defensive options in that second row position with the number 12 on his back over the last couple of seasons have been really poor at certain stages of his career. But what really impressed me wasn't just his skill, his attack, his strong runs. He just ran the football in this game. It was his defense that really impressed me in this game. His defensive options. He really. I'm just going to move the camera down a bit. He really made every decision he made in this game was correct. He played with confidence. He played like he was having fun. And, there's absolutely no disrespect when I say this, but he was playing for his coach as well. And there was a clear indication of every single player in that Manly team were playing for their coach. And which really is bullshit if you think about it. Like, no matter who the coach is, you're paid a lot of money to put on that jersey and play the best you can play and find a way. But at the end of the day, reality is we're all human, right? So we do, say if Kieran Foran, coached me for the Beacon Hill Bears, I'm going to do everything I can to run through a brick wall for him. Say if Matt Elliott, like coached the Beacon Hill Bears, I'm probably, great guy, but probably doesn't give me that same motivation that Foz would. And it's sort of the same thing, right? So it is human nature to probably just perform better and try and impress that person rather than another person that you may not connect with or may not play for naturally. And, it sucks. They should just play football and play the very best they can every week. But at the end of the day, you look at it, it's 27 regular season rounds a year, 4 weeks of finals. It's a long season. You've got the international at the end of the year, the World Cup, and then you've got trials at the start of the year as well. You're looking at roughly around like 38 weeks of rugby league. So it's big, it's a big season. But in saying that, like, I'm really proud of Manly. I'm really proud of Tom Trbojevic. I thought he had a great game. I just feel like he's playing smarter. He's not, I think Tom knows he won't be the Tom of 2021 again. In fact, I don't know if any player can get to that level again. It was bizarre what he was doing back then. But he's sort of changing his game a little bit, Tom, rather than doing what he did in 2021. There's less roaming and more hit ups and more sort of playing the long game. And um, if that makes sense. So there's more sweeping and setting up tries for his wingers. And he did that for Saab and Garrick in 2021, I know. But I think he's picking and choosing when the right times are to come in and out of the game. As in 2021, he was heavily involved. And now he's sort of been smarter with his body, smarter, just certain things where there's a maturity to his game now. And in 2021, it was unbelievable. And I'm not criticizing his form back then, but there's something about his form now where he seems a bit more patient. He seems very patient and happy to play the long game. I love what Manly are doing. Hal Molioka-Watu was absolutely fantastic. Kobe Hetherington was really good. Brandon Wakeham, I had massive doubts about him starting in that dummy half position. He was really impressive in this game. Really good service from dummy half. Quick early balls to his first receiver or his front rowers or his lock or whoever's running onto the football. There was quick service, and he actually played really well off the quick play of the balls, which really helped fasten Manly's ruck in the middle in attack. Defensively, he was quite good as well. I'm just really proud of Manly. It's one win at the end of the day. So now Manly's challenge is now to find consistency in their performance and not just make that win a one-hit wonder. They now need to continue playing for that jersey, continue playing for the fans and play for Manly. And I think Manly are in this cycle at the moment of trying to identify who they are again. When I grew up, Manly were a team that knew exactly who they were playing for. They respected the history, the tradition. They knew what it took to be a Manly Sea Eagle, which was tough mentally and physically. They partied hard off the field, but they backed up the next day, and that's what it was like being a Manly Sea Eagle back then. Now I think we're in this changing of the guard period where we've got a roster that probably isn't. Yeah, it's not a premiership winning roster, but in saying that, I feel like we are now, you know, it gives me confidence to think that either Kieran Foran or Matt Ballin is a high chance of being the long-term coach of Manly. It gives me a lot of happiness and confidence that this is the way we're going. And I think Manly are a unique club where they need to find their identity again. And I think that's exactly what they will do within the next couple of years. And you only have to look at what Benji has done at the Tigers to start the year. He's had a magnificent season as a head coach. Tigers second after round 5. Yes, they've had a bye, but they've won 3 games. And one was against Parramatta, who played really well in that game, mind you, and over in Auckland as well, to beat the Warriors, who had won 3 from 3 at the time. So they're playing for Benji. Benji is, when you look at the Tigers now, it's like the players know what it takes to be a West Tiger. And I think that's what Manly are doing at the moment, where they're trying to change that guard and try and get that Manly DNA back into the system at Manly, try and play a tough brand of football. And for me personally, I think Anthony Seibold will be an amazing assistant coach at any club he goes to, whether he goes back to rugby union or whatnot. He's very good with communication in terms of the technical stuff of the game. Reports are saying that he's great technically with the game, statistics, numbers, all that sort of stuff. For me, he's like an Adam O'Brien, where they've tried head coaching, but they're probably better off as an assistant coach, and Trent Barrett as well. So let's move on to the following game. This was Good Friday for me. South Sydney Rabbitohs beating the Canterbury Bulldogs 32 points to 24, and it was a fantastic win to the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Jai Gray, man, honestly, like he was so good for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And, there used to be a question, even just before the season started, who's the best option at fullback for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that Jai Gray is the best fullback for the Rabbitohs and needs to be the long-term fullback for the Rabbitohs. He is a fan favourite at South Sydney, and the Canterbury Bulldogs in this game. Wow, I tell you what, look, if I'm a fan, I'm not going to panic. They're probably going to lose against Penrith this week, and that would be 3 or 4 in a row that they would have lost. Or 3 in a row if they lose to Penrith. But I'm not going to panic. I'm not panicking about the Bulldogs, even though they're struggling at the moment. And Stephen Crichton has come off with an AC shoulder injury, and he'll be out for likely 4 to 6 weeks. At the end of the day, they've got a system there that works. Now, they're not scoring the points that they want. They're not getting the best out of their players. I think they're not getting, that they're winning games based on defense, but I think sometimes they do forget you've got to score a certain amount of points to win games as well as defend. For me personally, like the whole Bronson Sherry thing, I think, just bite the bullet and let him go. Like if you can go to Melbourne or go to Parramatta or go to a club that needs a centre, do a swap deal. But the messaging is confusing from the Bulldogs. Phil Gould and Cameron Ciraldo come out and say all this stuff, but I don't understand why they think they can. They're fooling the media, because they're not. They're not fooling the rugby league fans. They're not fooling. They're not fooling guys and people and girls and everyone that supports rugby league. Like, they're not fooling anyone. Like, I think they fuck up a lot of things, the Bulldogs, from above, like some decision making. And I've got no doubt that dropping Bronson Sherry was probably the right decision, right? But don't put him on the 6-man bench if I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that, because Sean O'Sullivan, he can cover a variety of positions as well. It didn't work out for them. In Canterbury's defence, when Sean O'Sullivan, he didn't have his best game, but when he came on, they also made around 13 or 14 errors in that second half. So that's going to be very hard for a player such as Sean O'Sullivan to help change momentum, change the game when the team just performed really poorly in that second half. For me, there's... I still think the Bulldogs are going to have a really good season, but I still think, perhaps you just sort of move Burton into the centres, just bring the kid in, Mitch Woods. I know he's injured at the moment, but in the next 2 or 3 weeks, bring him in as 7, Galvin 6, and just play football. Play a Dogs brand of football. Back to South Sydney, though, honestly, I just thought they were fantastic. Cheap shot there from Latrell. I did not like that. I think Cody Walker's been really good for them to start the year as well. Jamie Humphries is not a standout halfback, but he's just doing his job. He's just kicking the ball. He's got a good kicking game, really good defender too, Jamie Humphries. Really happy with the way in which South Sydney have started the year. I think if you're a Souths fan, you've got to be really, really happy. For me, the best moment of this game is when Alex Johnston intercepted that ball and ran about 95 metres to score under the black dot for the Rabbitohs. That was absolutely fantastic. And congratulations to the Rabbitohs because they have a really good record over the Bulldogs on Good Friday over the years. And I think the Bulldogs won it last year. But South Sydney, and a nice touch too with Nathan Merritt, who was unfortunately really unwell at the moment. And I'm sure a lot of people hearing this podcast or watching this podcast would have seen reports on Nathan Merritt about his health, and it's really quite sad. He was a fantastic player at the Rabbitohs, one of their top try scorers, an absolute legend of the club, and it was great to see him ring the bell, and there's no doubt that Wayne Bennett would have come up to the Rabbitohs players and mentioned about Nathan Merritt and making sure that they play for him and use motivation of winning this game towards attributing this performance and this win towards Nathan Merritt. I've got no doubt in my mind that Nathan Merritt was a big part of why South Sydney played so well in this game. Defensively, they have issues on that edge, left edge with Cody Walker and David Fifita. They do have some issues there. And I think that's something that I think the Raiders have South Sydney this week, I'm pretty sure, but that's something that they will be targeting. David Fifita, has he had a great start to the year? For me, he's had a good start to the year. But at the end of the day, in attack, he's been pretty decent, but defensively, he sort of comes in and out when he wants to in defense as well. So I think that's what you're going to get from David Fifita at the end of the day. But what Bennett needs to do is find consistency in his game, especially in defense, and make him prioritize his defensive game, because that could be a huge liability for the Rabbitohs come finals later on in the year. Let's move to the following game on Friday night between the Penrith Panthers and the Melbourne Storm. This was Melbourne's biggest defeat since 40-0 2008 grand final. Now, in Melbourne's defence, they've got no Xavier Coates. Who else is out? Eli Katoa, Sean Bloor, Tui Kamakamika. They've lost Pappenhausen, Nelson. So, at the end of the day, did I expect Melbourne to win this game? No, I didn't, but I expected a better performance than that. That was hugely concerning that 50 points have been put on the Melbourne Storm. And Penrith are just having fun. I don't know. I genuinely do not know how to explain the Penrith Panthers at the moment, because it's that good. Like, it's that good, what I'm watching. It's the best start to a team I've ever seen in my lifetime to start an NRL season. We all spoke about Penrith having the worst draw and the hardest draw of the season. They've smashed 5 wins and they've beaten each team by 20 plus. And you're talking teams like the Broncos, the Sharks, the Melbourne Storm. I mean, it's absolutely clinical. The Roosters, they are dominating sides, and they know what they're doing, and they are just absolute premiership winning favourites. If the Penrith Panthers do not win the 2026 premiership, I would be extremely surprised. The only thing that will really hurt them would be injury, but I can see them having a wonderful game for the majority, a wonderful season for the majority of 2026. This talk about them going undefeated, I find bullshit. Through the Origin period, they'll have about 8 or 9 guys out, and of course, Ivan Cleary does tend to rest his players towards the end of the year, especially if they've soaked up a minor premiership or top 4 position. So I do think they'll get at least a few losses in the year. But in saying that, I think the Penrith Panthers, they're so clinical. They're just like it sounds ridiculous, but they're like an obsessive compulsive team to watch, where, it's like the players know exactly where they're going to be at a certain part of the game, and they're just so robotic, and but yet they play in such a flexible way. They can go out of this robotic attack and just play eyes up footy at the same time, and have fun and just sort of enjoy their football. And Thomas Jenkins, really, really good start to the year from him. It's just absolutely unbelievable what he's doing. Casey McLean is unbelievable. They're just having fun. Dylan Edwards was good. I've got to give a massive rap to Blaze Talangi as well. What he is doing at the Penrith Panthers is beyond sensational. This time last year, he wasn't playing in first grade. In fact, he made his debut against Melbourne. I think it was round 3. Then he didn't see first grade again for another few weeks. They were really worried about his defence last year, early on in the year, and they didn't want to start him in the halves last year. They started with Jack Cole instead, who did a decent job for Penrith back then as well. But what Blaze Talangi, what impresses me is he's a great support player. Whenever there's a line break, you'll see both Blaze Talangi and Dylan Edwards, the first two players that will rush up and be there and support play. But then you've also got players such as, like Moses Leota, where he's a great support player too. You only have to go back to the 2023 grand final. If Cleary, the only player supporting Cleary when he made that dummy and run and line break was Moses Leota, who ended up scoring a try in the grand final. For me personally, they just have a team and front rowers full of skill, flexibility. The king game is sensational. They are mind fucking with teams. Like physically, they're bashing them up, but they are mind fucking the teams. Where I think it's almost impossible for a coach to coach against Penrith right now in the NRL and say this is exactly how Penrith are going to play, because they are mind-fucking coaches. And I feel like the opposition teams are trying to transition to a game plan A, to a game plan B, to a game plan C. And by halftime, they've run out of game plans. Like that's Penrith are winning every single time a team tries to adapt. And it's an honour and a privilege to watch the way that Penrith are playing. If I'm a Melbourne fan, I'm not going to panic. They've lost 3 in a row, but in saying that, they'll be back. I'm not buying this bullshit that they won't be in the 8 or anything like that. They'll be in the finals and they'll have a good season. They just need to have a good win, and I reckon they'll find momentum off the back of that. The following game was Super Saturday. The Dragons losing 32-0 to the Cowboys. Now, a lot has been spoken about the Dragons over the weekend, but for me, I want to touch on the Cowboys, how impressed I was by the Cowboys. And not enough has been spoken about the Cowboys in terms of how much they've turned their season around. You talk about 3 weeks ago, Todd Greenberg, Todd Payton, Todd Greenberg. Fuck, we're going back 10 years ago. Todd Payton, for me, was gone. Like him and Seabold, I'd say he was probably under more pressure than Seabold to start the year. And Todd Payton has transformed this season around. That's a team playing for their coach. And for whatever reason they weren't winning last year, for me, they were their Smoky. They were my Smoky to make the 8, just to make the 8 this year. They're sitting in 6th position at the moment. They're doing a good job. They lost in Vegas, of course, to Newcastle. They lost round 2. Things were looking really grim and their defense wasn't working. Their attack was offering nothing, but you've got to give credit to the Cowboys. Jackson Purdue looking fantastic in the centers. Hearing reports this morning that he is extending his contract at the Cowboys until season 2030, and that will be announced within the next 24 hours. Hoping that's true. That's a huge get for the Cowboys there. Jake Clifford, for me, has been the most underrated half of this year in the NRL. He has helped transform the attack of the Cowboys. Great kicking game from Jake Clifford as well. I think Braden Burns has done a really good job on the wing as well. Just Ruben Cotter, Griffin Neem, Reid Marnie. You're seeing the creativity out of dummy half that probably Reece Robson was a great defender. Good in attack as well, quick off the mark, but there's just something that Reid Marnie brings in terms of creativity in attack, especially near the try line. He knows how to consistently put players, edge forwards, front rowers, lock forwards straight through a gap to score a try. He is a real good sensational dummy half there, Reid Marnie. Congratulations to the Cowboys. For the Dragons, look, I just think Flanagan knows he'll be gone soon, unfortunately. Saw that press conference. That was just a man that knew his job was completely on the line. Apparently this week, there's reports that Flanagan will put Atkinson at 6 and Flanagan at 7. And, I did this podcast earlier in the year and we did a Dragons preview for 2026. And, people commented and agreed with me that, Atkinson should be the 6. He's not a 7. Flanagan the 7. I think it's not just us on this podcast and in this community that agree that was the right decision, but the whole rugby league community was saying, well, Atkinson is not a halfback. He's a running 5'8", and Flanagan's trying to transition him into a player that he's not. And he's a good player, Atkinson, but he played his best football at the Cronulla Sharks when he played at 5'8". He's got a good kicking game on him, but let Kyle Flanagan run the show. If you look back at Flanagan's career, debuted with the Sharks, I think it was back in 2018, had a couple of games there under his dad, and then he goes to the Roosters in season 2020, and sure, he gets dropped and towards the end of the year, and but he played the majority of the year. And I thought for me personally that Flanagan had a really good year for the Roosters in that number 7 jersey. His goal kicking was sensational. His kicking game was great. He doesn't offer as much in attack than other players, but at the end of the day, I think he's a solid halfback. I don't think Flanagan's a 5'8". He's either a halfback or a 14 off the bench, in my opinion. Gutherson now, I mean, you look at the fullbacks in this competition, Keano Kinney, like Reece Walsh, James Tedesco, Tommy Turbo, Jai Gray, like they're all quick off the mark. They've all got pace. There's something about Gutherson now where I still think he can offer a lot in the NRL over the next few years, but as a fullback is not his position anymore. You could even move Daniel Atkinson to fullback, really, or Valentine Holmes back to fullback. Tyrell Sloan, he's just been wasted there in that squad. I feel like he's getting coached poorly. He needs to be back in that starting 13, in my opinion, just his pace. He's like Jason Saab, where defensively really poor, but if Saab can get a crack every week, so can Sloan. Like, they can also offer a lot in terms of if there's a break, their support play is good and their speed will help get the team over the line at certain stages. They might let in 2 tries, but they might score 3 or set up 3. So it's one of those. He's one of those players, but at the end of the day, I just think Shane Flanagan, a bit like Des Hasler, where I think perhaps the game has gone past these kind of coaches. That you look back at 2011 and 2016 rugby league, you watch a game back then, even that 2016 grand final I watched a few months ago, the game is so slow. The game is completely different now. 10 years later, it's almost like we're watching a completely different sport. You're looking at players that were built for rugby league that back then. Now you're looking at players that are just pure athletes. For me, the Dragons, they're fucked. Unfortunately, I think that they're seriously fucked. I think they're a big chance of getting the spoon, unfortunately. And it's really sad. It's really sad to see because, I see the passion from their fans at halftime getting booing off. And, they had games. They had Melbourne. They had the Titans, they had Parramatta, but they found a way to lose because of the inexperience and lack of combination that the halves had. And the concussion to Flanagan wasn't good. And, Sully was out last week and, they've had injuries here and there. Players come in and out. And the bright lights at the Dragons, I guess, is, Hamish Stewart. He's been fantastic for them. I think Damien Cook's actually started the year well. I don't agree with journos and rugby league media when they come out and say Cook has just not got it anymore. For me, in my opinion, I think he's actually been really good to start the year for the Dragons. Obviously, he starts at dummy half and plays as a middle forward, a ball-playing lock when Jacob Little comes on. And for me, he's still offered a lot for the Dragons. I still think Damien Cook has at least another 2 or 3 years of his career to go. But at the end of the day, the Dragons, for me, they're just not playing for their coach. I think they're over. Losing 5 in a row is not good. It's not pretty. It's not good as a rugby league fan to see that, let alone be a Dragons fan. But I wish them all the best, but got major concerns for their season moving forward, especially with a long-term injury now to one of their captains, Clint Gutherson, where, sure, he's not the superstar fullback, and in my opinion, he never was a superstar fullback, but at the end of the day, he is a huge loss. There is absolutely no doubt about that, just in terms of his leadership experience, and when they're under pressure, he can help bring them in and calm the players down. They will miss that leadership on the field. The other game, Super Saturday, the Gold Coast Titans losing to the Brisbane Broncos. I'll quickly go through the other games. The Broncos, look, they won the game, but fuck, I mean, like, if that the forward pass wasn't called, I think the Titans come close, to be honest. I think Josh Hannay had a really good point in his press conference at the end of the game, discussing that game could have been a completely different game if that call went their way. For me, the Broncos, they're doing what they need to do at the moment. It is still early in the year. It was only round 5. We're only going into round 6 at at the year. I think it's when teams get to around round 8 or round 9 where you start to really see teams and those premiership winning threats start to step up and play a new brand of football and elevate their game to a new level. For me, in my opinion, the Broncos, they're getting the job done. They lost the first two. They beat Melbourne in Melbourne. They win last week, and then they come up to the Gold Coast and they beat the Gold Coast 26-12. Obviously, the injuries to Ben Hunt, he's out for 6 to 8 weeks. That's a loss, in my opinion, Ben Hunt. And also Adam Reynolds. He's been named to play this week. I doubt he'll play this week. I don't know why they'd risk him. So they've got some injury concerns, obviously a fractured cheekbone to Reece Walsh as well. So look, they've got players out, but there's no excuses for Brisbane. They've won a competition. They have a lot of depth in that side, a lot of resources and money that a lot of clubs don't have the luxury of. And, that's credit to Brisbane. They've done that themselves, and they're a great, highly successful club, but there's no excuses now. Like they need to, if they're going to go back to back, then this next couple of months are huge for them. I don't think they can go back to back and do it how they did it last year. I think they're going to have to find a lot of form from middle to back end of the year, and a bit more earlier in the year as well. I think they're going to be a lot more consistent in the year. Were they the best team in the competition last year? Technically, yes, because they won the competition, but consistently through the competition, probably not. You'd say Canberra were way more consistent than the Broncos throughout the year. But at the end of the day, they won the premiership. They need to find consistency in their game, and that's what they're doing now. You can't, at the end of the day, you can't sit there and criticise them too much after 3 wins in a row. Ezra Mam, I remember a game earlier in the year when the Broncos, I think it was round 2, and the Broncos took on Parramatta, and Ezra Mam and Gebert Shibasaki on that edge for the Broncos. Their defence was so bad. It was one of the worst defensive games I'd seen from a half. It was really poor. But at the end of the day, I think, Ezra Mam has really lifted his game in defence. And there's no doubt that Madge Maguire and the assistant coaches would have spoken to Ezra Mam and say, hey, if you're going to hold on to this spot, you're going to need to learn how to read the play and defend. Defence has always been an issue in Ezra Mam's game ever since he made his debut back in 2022 for the Brisbane Broncos. Slowly it's gotten better over the years, but it's not up to where it needs to be. The last few weeks, I think a large reason why Brisbane have won is because of the defence for Ezra Mam has significantly improved. It's still not great. It's still not excellent. It may never be. But in saying that, at the end of the day, I mean, players like Jonathan Thurston was not the best defender. So there are flaws in players' games, but the better he can be, the more games Brisbane will win. There's absolutely no doubt about that. The following game, Sunday afternoon football, Easter Sunday, the Cronulla Sharks winning this 36 points to 22. I'm going to whiz through these games. So the Sharks, fantastic. They went to Canberra last week under a lot of pressure. They were outsiders in that game. They ended up beating Cronulla and quite convincingly in the end. I think it was around 16 or 20 points. I think over the last couple of weeks, Nicho Hynes was really good in this game. I think him and Trindle were really connecting nicely, and I think the Sharks are finding consistency. The Warriors were no easy beat in this game, and I understand they were playing at Shark Park, but let's remember that the Warriors had won 3 from 4 and real convincing wins as well. A lot of people saying that they're a contender for the premiership this year. I disagree with that. But in saying that, you look at the players that Metcalf playing his second game, like Tanner Boyd has been in fantastic form. Shans had moved to the centres. Tane Tuapicki's a great player at fullback. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, still a superstar. He's probably not as good as what he was, but he still offers a lot of leadership and experience and speed, and he's still got such amazing footwork and skill. For me personally, the Cronulla Sharks, you got to give credit to them. They'd be really unhappy if letting in 22 points. I think Fitzy would not be happy with their defence in this game. But in saying that, they won this game by 14 points, and it was based on their forwards. I thought Toby Rudolph was really good in this game. And Blake Brayley, for me, he's up there with one of the best hookers of the game. I think Reece Robson is under significant pressure of holding on to that number 9 jersey for New South Wales in game 1 of this season. Congratulations to the Cronulla Sharks. They have won now 3 games in a row, and they are in good form in this NRL season. So they're off to Perth this week, and they're off for a big game against the Sydney Roosters, I believe, for round 6. the Newcastle Knights and the Canberra Raiders. If I'm a Canberra Raider, I'm probably not panicking yet, to be honest. I think there's still a lot I like about Canberra. Defensively, they're not, you know, as good as what they were last year. In attack, they're really missing Jamal Fogarty's kicking game, in my opinion. Ethan Sanders, it'll just take him, I reckon, another 2 or 3 weeks to, he's still very inexperienced. He's only played a handful of NRL games. Obviously, he nailed that field goal against Manly back in round one. But what he's achieved, he's learning his craft. He's learning his new, he's learning about NRL. He's got a new halves combination there with Ethan Strange, and they're 1 from 4. Could have easily have been none from 5. But I genuinely think Canberra will win this week. I just got a feeling they're going to lift, and I think Joe Tarpanay and players like Tom Starling, Hudson Young, Noah Martin, they're going to go at another level. And I think Canberra will get their first win in over a month this weekend. I think the Canberra Raiders, they've been disappointing the last few weeks, but we have to remember we're 5 weeks into a very, very long season. Let's not panic. I think the Raiders, I didn't have them in my 8, but I still think they're going to be winning a fair few football games this year. And I can see their first win coming since the Manly game within the next week or two, without a doubt. The Newcastle Knights, congratulations to them. They are just playing such free-flowing football. Crazy to think they're doing this without Dylan Brown and Kalen Ponga. They're a team playing for their coach, and the coach is coaching for the team. There's a trust between the coaching staff and the players. And you can see that by the way they're playing on the field. They're playing football, and they're playing a free-flowing style of football that is really damaging to teams' defensive structures. They're playing an unpredictable style of football and attack. You don't know what they're going to do. You don't know where Fletcher Sharp is going to, if he's going to pop up first receiver, second receiver, or switch to fullback. And you've got to give credit to Fletcher Hunt as well and what he's done since he's come on over the last 3 weeks and started in that fullback jersey. He's been absolutely sensational for the Knights. But for me, one of their best players has been Dylan Lucas on that edge, forward on the left edge there. And Jermaine McEwen as well has been absolutely sensational. Congratulations to them. I think Greg Marzi had a good game. Dominic Young he's playing some good football again. His defence it's never great, but it's improving, and you've got to give credit to it. If you notice a defensive player's weakness and you see a team improving, you've got to give credit to that player. And I think his defence is significantly improving. Dane Gagai was sensational in this game. What a player he is. 35 years old. He's played for many, many years. I think he made his debut back in 2011, I'm pretty sure. He's sensational, just his leadership. Congratulations to Newcastle. Justin Holbrook is saying, have fun, play football, play a touch football brand of football as well. And just, if you see an opportunity, take it. If there's an offload available, throw the offload. And there's no robotic structured style of football that Newcastle were playing last year where they couldn't create any points out of nothing. Now they are creating many, many points out of absolutely nothing. And it's coming, they're scoring long range tries, and they're playing for each other. And you look at Newcastle last year, they didn't win a game from round 17 onwards when their last win was against the Dolphins in Perth. And for me, you look at them now, they're playing for each other. They're enjoying their football, and they're playing for their town. And the way the Newcastle Knights supporters get behind them. I originally tipped Canberra in this game, and then I went and I changed my tip about 10 minutes before kickoff because I saw the crowd at Newcastle and it was full, it was packed, and I just thought, something about the Knights this year where they're proving everyone wrong, including myself. They are doing such a good job. I don't have them making the top 8, but in saying that, I really hope they do. Just like Canberra last year, where everyone wrote them off, they're proving a lot of people wrong. So congratulations to them. Now, the final game of the round was the West Tigers defeating the Parramatta Eels 22 points to 20. I tipped Parramatta in this game. Credit to the West Tigers. For me, that sin bin was really unfortunate. There's no doubt if Bailey Simonson was not severely injured, that was a sin bin offence. Like it was a total accident. These things are going to happen. Congratulations to the Tigers. Talking about a team playing for their coach, absolutely sensational. And Api Coruscant, I think that was one of the best games I've seen him play in Tigers colours since 2023 when he made his debut for the club. He's ducking and weaving out of dummy half and then finding a support player, whether it be Kai Pearce-Paul, who is just sensational in attack at the moment, or whether it's Jareem Buller and there's flick passes and there's Sania Taruva, who's moved to the centres, who's taken his chance, who has an amazing right foot step and an offload and reading the play and skill and defensively really strong. And Adam Dewey in fine form at halfback. And they're doing all this without their main man, Jerome Luai. It's sensational what they're doing. And let's not forget that Terrell May's been out since round 2. He's a huge loss as well. What Benji's building there is really, really good. And I think for the Tigers, congratulations to the supporters. They're sitting in second position after round 5. So it's absolutely fantastic to see. They've got the Newcastle Knights, I'm pretty sure, at Campbelltown this week. Congratulations to them. The Parramatta Eels, I thought they did really well in this game considering there was no Jermaine Hopgood. For me, Dylan Walker starting's not a good move. I just think Dylan Walker is a sensational number 14 where he can come on and transform the momentum. They just lack that energy off the bench when he starts in the 13 jersey. I think they need to find another player, whether it's Jack de Belin, who I think may be a little bit slow for the NRL at the moment with the pace of the game speeding up. I don't know. They need to find another winger to replace Bailey Simonson, who will be out for the year. They've got to find another young lock forward, in my opinion, to replace Jermaine Hopgood. And I think Dylan Walker, really important that he is the number 14 or 15 or 16 or 17 off the bench. Talon De Silva, for me, he needs to listen to his halfback. He made 2 errors in a row. He threw it to the left and then he threw it past to Josh Adokar, where I thought, okay, well, did Adokar call for that? By the way, I saw Adokar look. He looked really stunned that he received the football at that time, and that was a real opportunity for Parramatta to win that game and seal the game and score with a player sin bin. Moses calling for the football. Talon De Silva did this last year as well. He needs to listen to his halfback. There might be a call where a hooker overrides the play, but if you do it twice in a row, and at that, I think if you've got a player sin binned, you back your halfback in terms of he's screaming his lungs out to call for the ball. He sees an opportunity. Just back an experienced 31-year-old of Mitchell Moses in that position to do the job and back him. A representative football that's played in the NRL now for many, many years. I think you just pass it to him and just back your halfback. I've got no worries of players having confidence and backing their opportunities at certain times, but there is a time and a place, and that was not the time for Talon De Silva to ignore his halfback with a player sin bin. Mitchell Moses had obviously had a place set out wide on that right edge for the Parramatta Eels. For me, they didn't play poor Parramatta, and neither did the Tigers. This was a high-quality game of football. Sure, it had errors, but at the end of the day, it was a fantastic game of football. Jock Madden has been unbelievable. For me, he needs to be the 14. I think you can do both Jock Madden and Latu Fino on the bench. To be honest, I think Jock Madden has, Latu Fino, I've got no doubt, has a more promising future in the NRL. But I like how Latu Fino just came on and played that ball playing lock sort of style. He was rated as one of the best halves coming through, and we haven't really seen his potential. We've seen him come on and play really good games at halfback for the Tigers. But at the end of the day, they've gone Dewey and Jerome Luai. And Latu Fino, I love there's no bullshit complaining for him. There's no wanting to release and go to another club. He's just playing for the team. And he said in a post-match interview a couple of weeks ago, he's just happy to play 1 week ago. I think he's just happy to play in any position for his coach and for his team. And shit, that is so refreshing to see a player say that. So that is the round 5 review of the NRL 2026. Congratulations to all the teams and supporters that won. Go Manly. For me, that was a fantastic win and their first win of the season. But congratulations as well to the West Tigers. It's great to see them get a win. The Cowboys was a fantastic win as well. We saw some amazing wins. Penrith, of course, winning 50-10 over the Melbourne Storm. A great Easter round of rugby league, and I'm looking forward to round 6. The next edition will be team lists for round 6. So please, if you love what you're watching, if you love what you're hearing, please follow me on Spotify. This is the Rugby League Forecast podcast, and follow me, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm Connor Moran, and thank you very much, guys, for watching and listening to the round 5 review of the NRL.